he takes a towel and literally narco style wraps it around her face as if he's gonna choke her to death. Like, damn, a gun just went into my left eyeball. Life was very uncertain. The first thing they said was, we're from the Cali cartel.
What would you do if you were bragging about a particular city that you had visited just to find out a year later that was the city that you're going to be kidnapped in? Well, for one YouTuber, this is exactly what happened when he came to Cali, Colombia. As you all well know, this is the city in which I live in, and I've lived here 6 years, no incidences, never came close. But at the end of the day, once again, someone came to Cali, Colombia, ended up being drugged, kidnapped, and robbed. So the question I ask is this: should individuals still come to Colombia? Because if you carry yourself in a certain way, I can attest that Colombia is not the country for you. We're going to do a breakdown when it comes to the laws of common sense. Because if you're not coming to Colombia to use the common sense that you use back home, well, you might as well stay home. My name is Andre of Love Crossing Borders, Travel Unravel Edition. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell so you can make sure you get all the updated videos that we do. Now, as I was saying, when it comes to this fellow YouTuber, this just happened to him in November. I have the news article on what took place, and at the same time, he's going to give step-by-step details. We're going to do this video in 2 parts because he has a lot to share. So I'm not going to hold us up. Let's get started with the video. Now, as I was saying, this video review or reaction is not an attack on the gentleman that just went through the drugging and the kidnapping. I'm glad that everything turned out safely for him and that he was able to get out of the situation without being harmed. But this is a video that's going to give you some ground rules because, as I said before, many of you have no problems with coming to Colombia and obeying the laws. But the problem is many of you come to Colombia and you don't obey the rules.
I've disappeared for a bit from my YouTube channel, and the reason is I lost all my content and I lost my GoPro because I got kidnapped in Cali, Colombia, the place that I used to really promote and always be like, hey, it's, you know, one of those cities in Colombia that's less discovered, has a very bad reputation. Yeah, it ended up biting me in the ass. I'm very lucky right now to be alive because the story I'm about to tell you, there were points where I thought I might die. This was definitely the craziest experience of my whole life. I hope people who watch this can learn from it, learn the lessons of, you know, how to be careful, how not to make the same mistakes that I and my friend did.
Notice he did acknowledge that he and his friend did not follow the rule or the blueprints that are laid out by most passport bros or most travelers when it comes to traveling to any city. And since they didn't follow what I just mentioned, the rules, it had a major impact on their vacation.
24th of November at my Airbnb. I rented a pretty nice Airbnb in Cali. It was an Airbnb that had its own swimming pool. So my friend Karsh, who's living in Cali as well, he's like, I want to come over and check out your pool. And I also want to invite one of my friends, Nicole, who he had talked about previously. And I think he had known her for a month. As far as I know, they were not romantically involved.
And let's not let that part slide. He's inviting his friend over to his place. His friend is inviting a woman who he doesn't know. And his friend has only known this woman, Nicole, for a month. How often in the United States do you allow strangers to bring How often in the United States do you allow someone to just automatically bring strangers into your home that you don't know? Well, you don't do that often. Then rule number 1, why are we doing this in Colombia? If you're a type of person that you need to have people showing up at your place whimsically, Colombia is not the place for you. You need to go to another country. You can do that in Thailand, or maybe you could do that in parts of Mexico. But Colombia is not a place where you can just whimsically allow someone to bring someone to the place where you lay your head.
Rest up for an hour, and around 7:30 p.m., Karsh arrives. And right after Karsh arrives Nicole, and Nicole ends up...
Now, once again, this is Nicole, the one that his friend only knew for a month. He said something else that many of you would have gone over, many of you heard. He said that this incident happened 7:30 p.m. in the evening. What do I mention to you guys all the time? Do more things during the day when you're here in Colombia than things that you would do in the evening. A lot of guys are night walkers. bringing women over to your place late at night, bringing women over to your place that you don't know, having people just show up. He doesn't know her from a can of paint. The same way you carry yourself in the United States when it comes to certain people, you have to do that same rule here.
Showing up with her friend Natty, who I know for about a year. Again, I've met her a couple of times in my life, and Karsh has also met Natty through me, and apparently Natty was who introduced Karsh to Nicole.
So now we have 4 people. We've got Natty, we've got Nicole, we've got his friend Posh, and we've got the gentleman right here, all in his Airbnb, and it's about 7:30 at night.
So surprisingly, Natty shows up, and again, at this point, we're like, whatever, cool. We're hanging out with them. Karsh had invited another friend. She shows up half an hour after these girls. Karsh's new friend, her name's Giselle. She comes in and she's about to change.
Once again, another woman that he doesn't know, Giselle, shows up. So now he's got 3 women there, one that they've only known a month, another that they've been knowing off and on for a year, and another, a woman they have never met in their lives.
Natty and Nicole, the first 2 people who came, they ended up going into the room with Giselle. And Giselle brought a friend, closed the room for 5 minutes.
So now Giselle brings a friend. Natty's there. Nicole's there. So that's 4 women in a location, and it's just 2 guys. And to many of you guys, hey, that's a party going on. All the original plan was for his boy and maybe one girl to show up. And the reason why I'm saying this, because I'm asking these questions for you guys to respond in the comment section. Would you allow this to happen in your home as an adult male in the United States or in Canada or any part of the West? No? Then why are you allowing yourself to behave this way in another country? Once again, I'm not shaming. I'm just letting you guys know that the same way that you carry yourself with the same wisdom and insight that you use back home, you have to use that wisdom here in Colombia. If you cannot do that, you should not be coming here.
So we assume they're changing. And after half an hour, Giselle decides to leave with her friend. They leave, and Karsh goes to drop them off to their Uber. And then Karsh comes back. Karsh tries to tell me something. And Karsh says, hey, come here. And he tells me, Giselle was telling me something about stealing.
Next thing you know, so the guy's coming back upstairs. His friend is saying, hey, somebody is talking about robbery and stealing. Let's continue on.
Nicole was telling her that they want to steal from us. We take this information and we're like, okay, if they're going to steal from us, let's get out of here. So we're right away like, let's go to a bar. This is it. Party's over here. Let's go to a bar. And at that point, Natty goes into the bathroom to change. She's like, I need a lot of time to change. I need to like get ready. Nicole is like, oh, I have a friend who's dropping something off and I have to wait for her here. And we're like, no, like we're going to go to the bar now and have your friend come over to the bar. We try to push for it and like we're trying to rush them out of the place. Long story short, we don't succeed and we don't understand how grave the situation is. So we also don't run away. About 15 to 20 minutes later, Nicole's friend arrives and Karsh goes to check in on her. I call one of my other friends who lives in Cali. I told him like, hey, something's going on, like something doesn't feel right. Just in case, here's my address. And while I'm saying that, I feel a gun to my head.
All of this was one big avoidable setup. Didn't need to happen. As I read the stories of the men that have been drugged or robbed or deleted in Colombia that have been tourists, I noticed that at least 90% of them, 10% I give leeway to, but statistically 90% of the events that occurred could have been avoided by using the same tactics of safety that we use back home. That's the biggest mistake that I notice guys are making. You come to other countries that you don't know and let your guard down and don't carry yourself the same way that you would in your home country in which you do know.
When I only see one guy, he's coming to my Airbnb and he just snatches my phone and he's like, shh, shows me his gun is loaded, ties up my hands, puts me in my room. And at this point, I have no idea where's Karsh, where's Natty? Where's Nicole? I just see this guy, and then after him, I see 2 or 3 other guys follow him. But when they walked in, by the way, the first thing they said was, "We're from the Cali cartel." I don't think that's true.
Yes, he's absolutely correct. It is not true. The Cali cartel and most drug-related cartels right now move in silence. They don't brag. They don't talk about who they are and what they're involved in. They move in silence. You wouldn't know who is part of the Cali, Medellin, or Bogota cartel. So he's absolutely correct in regards to that was a lie.
At this point, they're like, "Yeah, you guys are being robbed. Give us everything you have." So since I've seen the bullets at this point, I'm like, okay, here's all my cash. I guide them to everything they're probably potentially looking for. And in my mind at this point, they're here to take our TVs. They're here to take our, they're here to just rob the Airbnb and leave in a couple of hours. At some point they ask, "Hey, is anyone gonna come here?" Someone was gonna come clean the pool the next day. So I informed them of that, thinking that this is gonna incentivize them to leave sooner. But that went the wrong way, because later on, I was informed by Nicole. So she tells us that these guys are here to use our credit cards. The main goal is to swipe our credit cards for multiple days. And I heard them talk in Spanish. They're going to stay here till Sunday. They came in on a Thursday and they're going to stay till a Sunday. So their plan was to do this for 3 days. But now that I told them someone might come to clean the pool, they're like, okay, we need to get them out of here soon. So they start scheming what to do with that information. And meanwhile, I'm like, "Hey, please, can you put me and Karsh together?" They do that. They're nice enough to at least put us in the same room. At some point, we ask for water. I drink half of it. Karsh realizes the water is drugged, so he refuses to drink it. And they put a gun to his head, get aggressive with him, and make him drink the whole drugged water. And this water was meant to make us feel very drowsy. It was slightly yellowish in color. And by the way, all these robbers were just doing drugs. They're snorting stuff. They kept offering us stuff, and we're obviously like, no. They did give me a beer, which was my own beer, so I drank it, literally hands tied, drinking a beer like that. Honestly helped me relax in such a stressful situation. Meanwhile, my friend who was calling to give my address and I couldn't, kept calling me. So Nicole picks up the phone at some point and tells me, "Hey, tell him everything's okay." And then I was forced to tell him everything's okay because there's a guy with...
Now notice, let's pause. Nicole picks up the phone. Tell your friend that everything's okay. Who is Nicole? The young lady at the beginning of the video. The one that was invited, they only knew for a month. If you are not following the same common sense rules that have protected you your whole life in your home country, you do not need to visit other countries and break the rules in which you've established for yourself over a lifetime.
With the gun, any movement we make, we're gonna go to the washroom, this guy with the gun follows us. We're not able to do anything basically, and at this point, yeah, they're like, "Where's your laptop?" They go through all my cash, they take my Russian cash, Indian currency, like everything. They do give us our passport. That was very nice of them, I guess. The only nice thing they did is at the beginning, they found our passports, handed it to us. So they came in at 10 p.m. Around 1 a.m., they tell us the plan. They're like, "You're going to be taken away from here to a hotel because we feel it's dangerous here. Someone might come in. We're going to basically kidnap you and take you to a hotel." So at this point, I'm like, okay, I need some clothes if we're going to be gone for 3 days. And I remember I had an extra phone hidden in between my stack of underwear. So when I go into my little wardrobe room where I have my clothes, I'm able to use one of my hands to email my friend who was calling me 20 times, who I tried to give my address, saying, "I'm getting kidnapped, this is my address, send the police." Like, there's a guy with the gun looking at me, but with my right hand I was able to send this email out. And right after I sent that email out, basically we're taken away. At that point, like, the drugs started hitting both me and my friend. We don't remember. Everything else after that is a blur of how we got there. Like, there are 2 different cars. We got put in the cars. And then once we get to the hotel, the guy who receives us, I'm going to call him the homicide guy. He was very aggressive. So far, all these guys were not like kind of touching us. They're just pointing guns at us. This guy was like hitting us on our head and just like, look down, look down. The moment we arrived, he's like just like holding our heads and making sure we look down, don't look up. But anyways, from what we could see, this was a very sketchy hotel, people doing drugs, prostitutes all around. They take us all the way to the 4th or 5th floor. This hotel was called Palmetto Hotel. It's in this very shady part of the city. And then at first they tried to separate us into 2 rooms, but then we asked for it. They put us in the same room. And then Nicole comes in, she's on the phone phone with some guy, let's call him the gringo, because it was a person who spoke American English and barely spoke Spanish. And that person tells us, hey, these guys are not going to kill you, but if you don't follow what they ask you, they're going to kill you. And he was, again, like, the plan is for them to use up your credit cards. Tomorrow morning, they're going to go out, use your credit cards, debit cards. So at this point, both me and Karsh were just trying to sleep. At every point inside the room, there's 2 guys with guns looking at us, but it's somewhere between 2 to 4 guys coming in and out, Nicole coming in and out, asking us, oh, is this whose credit card is what, whose ID is what, sending pictures of all our credit cards to this gringo guy over WhatsApp. His name was saved as 222. I could not fall asleep because I was so stressed. Karsh, on the other hand, because he drank the whole drug thing, he passed out. I wish I drank all of it, honestly. Or maybe I don't. Who the hell knows what it was? You know, time passes by. They're playing music while we're sleeping because they are not allowed to sleep because they have to keep an eye on us. So it's very hard to sleep. At some point, it's like, you know, if I turn around while sleeping, this guy would just like move my head back and put me in that same position. So like literally I'm sleeping with pain because I can't even move my body. Morning comes along, they order some food using our Uber Eats, like Rappi, the local app. Nicole, the organizer of the kidnapping, the girl, she comes in and she's like, okay, it's time. She makes me talk to the gringo again. He explains all the plan to me again. And at this point, first they deal with Karsh. They make Karsh make some transfer-wise transfers, and then they deal with me. And with me, they're like, we're going to be using your debit, credit cards, because they got all my cards because it was my Airbnb that they robbed. So they explained to me, I'm going to call my banks and make sure I authorize the transactions. So I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever you guys want. They take my credit card PIN numbers, my phone PIN, my laptop. And again, we don't have access to our phone, laptop. They've taken everything away. Homicide guy, another guy, and Nicole split off and go out to basically start making purchases using our credit card. And these 2 guys, let's call them the Morenos, stay with us, and they obviously have a gun and they keep us in the room. We asked them, how long is it going to take? When are we going to be freed? They're like, we don't know. But when they're talking in Spanish, I understand their plan is to keep us till Sunday. They leave around 10 a.m. And then these 2 guys are watching us. And then from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., very uneventful. I'm just waiting for that call where they're going to ask me to call my bank. Never get that call. And then after 12 p.m., I noticed the Morenos as well start getting impatient. They're like, hey, where are you guys? Why are you not coming back?
So let's pause right there. It's the next day, 12 p.m. And now the kidnappers are starting to get a little nervous. He's going to tell the reason why. Now, kidnapping like this is very common when it comes to foreigners. Some survive it, many don't. Now, what we're looking at right now is the article that came out in regards to when these guys were rescued. Canadian citizens successfully rescued from kidnappers in Cali, Colombia. But I want to scroll down to, it says security issues. This incident puts a spotlight on security issues in Colombia, especially for foreigners. Between January and September of 2023, Colombia recorded 243 kidnappings, representing a surge of more than 70% compared to the same period in 2022, when there were 142 cases. Despite the rising figures, Colombian government has been making concentrated efforts to curb organized crime and violence in the country. So we just got a chance to see that there is a rise in kidnappings in Colombia, but also that includes locals as well. And for many of us, we'll say, well, wow, Colombia is super dangerous. It should not be like that. It's horrible. But if you look at the statistics compared to Canada, the United States, as well as other westernized countries, there's far more kidnapping and human trafficking in the United States than there ever has been in Colombia. Also, another stat we need to consider. In Medellin alone, just in Medellin, they receive over 2.4 million people that come to Medellin as tourists every year. That's more than Orlando, Florida, with 2.2 million every year. And yet there's only been 40 deletions out of that 2.4 million tourists, as well as only 150 to 160 kidnappings that have taken place. Now, none of us want any of this to happen to anybody. But when you look at the numbers for what it is in one city, 2.4 to 2.5 million people coming through, you realize that's less than a 0.0 plus percent of a chance that you would have an incident like that happen to you in Medellin alone. And also remember, in order to make that number even less for you, make sure you use the same common sense by following the rules that you have established for yourself to live safely in the United States for all these years. Bring that same mentality to Colombia and other countries. That's how you make it back home safely. Now let's go back to the video.
And they're also getting very nervous. They keep looking out of the window of the hotel room, seeing like if anyone's coming, end up making us change rooms. And we end up moving to one floor higher, into a corner hotel room where, there's not that many people passing by. I speak Spanish decently well to understand what's going on. What are the kidnappers talking about? And around 1:30 p.m., I figure out that the Morenos are being screwed over by the other group, because they're being told that, hey, these guys don't have any money on their card, so we haven't been able to get any money. When I hear that, I ask Karsh, I'm like, hey Karsh, let's let them know. I think they're being screwed over, and maybe that way we can negotiate directly with these guys. So I tell the Morenos, he's like, hey, you guys have my phone, open all my bank accounts and see how much money has been withdrawn. And we open our bank accounts, and guess what? They've already withdrawn like $7,000. So I tell the Morenos, I'm like, hey, these guys are screwing you over. Let's try to do this. We'll send you money directly, and then you let us go.
We're going to stop right there for today. Yes, over $6,000 had been taken. So now the robbers or the kidnappers are being robbed themselves. Now you see how crazy this scenario is and how it could have all been avoided by using the rules of common sense. At the end of the day, it is not about following the laws here in Colombia that's going to make your trip here, as well as going back home, safe. It is also about the rules of common sense, the common sense that you normally use on a day-to-day basis. For example, you don't bring total strangers in your home in the United States. You don't bring pay-for-play women or prostitutes into your home in the United States. You don't spend most of your time going out only at night while you're back home in the United States or whatever country that you're originally from. Use the common sense that you use back home, and your trip here will be great. If not, you might just have to zoom to Thailand. Well, my name is Andre, once again, of Love Crossing Borders Travel Unravel Edition. We're going to do part 2 in the next video. And make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, click that like button, as well as the notification bell. And once again, I'll see you in the next video as we put our lives on airplane mode.